Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for tuning in today. I know there's a lot of great Zooms and webinars happening on this Wednesday at noon. So thank you all for joining us today. My name is Jordan Schugar. I am currently a professor of English and Digital Humanities at the Westchester University. And with me today is Nydair Rouse, who is a graduate of our university, graduated in 2019. Nydair is originally from Philly, and he graduated from Simon Gratz High School. He, after graduating from Westchester, went on to play for the Green Bay Packers in the NFL, spent a year in the CFL with Vancouver, and is currently employed as a defensive back for the XFL for the DC Defenders. He currently lives in downtown Philly. You might see him around, and so say hello here, Nydair.
How you doing? How you doing, guys?
Can you just start here a little bit about about yourself and you know where you're from, Philly, but like how you got to Westchester University specifically?
Yeah. So I was like a three-sport athlete in high school, track, football, basketball. But track was the best sport that I was the best at. Had a couple offers for track to like high D1 schools, but I didn't want to do track once I was done school. So football was like my dream always since a kid, and I had the opportunity from a few schools. Maybe I wouldn't say that was in the PSAC, no high Division I schools, and Westchester just seemed the best fit. So that's how I ended up Westchester. Gerald Tony was the one that recruited me, sold me a good story about how I can meet my wife at Westchester, and it's school for me, good party school stuff. That's the school I ended up picking.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously, they try to sell you on some of the academics in terms of more than just the stadium and the athletic facilities. So, did you know you were going to be a communications major when you started here at the university?
No, I didn't actually. When I first got there, I wanted to be a nurse. So, like when we did like an orientation, I went with the group that was trying to be nurses and things like that. But then early on, one of the older teammates was like, "Yo, there's no way that you're going to be able to be a nurse and do football at the same time." And honestly, I just wanted to be a nurse because my family used to watch Grey's Anatomy growing up. So it was just something about being in scrubs.
Sure.
Being in scrubs, yeah. So, but comm just made more sense. Comm just made more sense for me.
Right. Sure. Yeah. Certainly. Probably nowadays too, in your career as well. Did you think, like, when you started? Did you think you'd be where you were today when you were a student at Westchester?
Yeah, but like I'm a man of faith in God, so I figured I will always be where I'm at right now. I mean, I thought I would be much more richer and had things much more figured out at 27, but you know, I can't say that I'm not grateful for where I'm at. But yeah, I kind of figured I would be where I am today when I was at Westchester.
What does like a daily what's your like a day in the life look like for you? I mean, I know you're up early every day working out. Can you describe a little bit of like your regimen about what you do daily here as a professional athlete training for the season?
So being as though now our season is not starting until January, but I'm still just trying to stay in shape just in case I get an NFL call again. But I wake up around 4 a.m. I usually don't eat, drink some water, stuff like that. Go train at Conshohocken with one of my friends, Kenny Red. Then throughout the day, I'll try to find like community service, something like that to do. Like today, I just went to I can't even think of the name. It's a farm out in like Ben Salem area. I went to a farm because like farms can't operate without like community help. So I did a farm, did a little chores around there. Then I get done again. Usually around this time, I'm working out again. But I got this interview right now, so I'll work out around this time, around 12 o'clock again. And then the rest of the day, I'm kind of just coasting, just honestly, just being still, honestly, as for right now.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of downtime I've heard as an athlete too, like in between, and like those sorts of times. When you were earning your degree, like what was your, I mean, I know your plan was to stay engaged in sports, but I know there were other elements too in terms of being in that field. Did you have a plan? Like, I know you're focused on football, but like, did you have the life that you had thinking about after sport? I mean, they probably tell every athlete it's going to be right. So
yeah, definitely. Getting to NFL is obviously like almost like a pipe dream. It's like a 1%, and then like being at D2 is like a 0.001% to get to NFL. So I kind of like, obviously you have faith, but I had to be realistic with myself. And I was looking at being like a sports broadcaster at first. Then when I started doing like a little bit of shadowing and talking to a lot of guys, it was guys that were like 50. They were like, yeah, I've been in the game for 20 years and I'm not making a lot of money, but you know what I mean? I love to do this. I had to sit back and like, well, I don't really love it that much to do. It just was a backup plan. So going towards my senior year, I started making a transition of being like a director of client services. That's something I want to see myself doing, like basically overseeing companies and make sure everyone's good. I feel like I can talk. So like, and I'm like I'm very personable. So that was something I see myself kind of doing, like director of client services. You can make good money. And I heard that you
Yeah.
had a lot of free time. So that was
Yeah,
big.
leadership and project management. I got to imagine sort of some of the experience as a captain in sports is certainly helpful in that space. I think that brings us to a good place to the next sort of question, which is like, besides all the great things you learned in my writing classes, what were the other parts of your like education here that you find yourself like coming back to frequently, or either professionally or personally? I mean, certainly like some of that leadership sorts of experiences. Yeah, can you comment on that a little bit?
Like things that I've learned through there, like from Westchester.
Yeah, like through your classes and those, like how you might apply those to the situations that you're in currently.
Well, well, yeah, definitely writing class, 8 a.m. in the morning. It's definitely tough. So it definitely taught me a lot of discipline. But
Yeah,
I would say two classes that I really stick to, it was will kind of be awkward. The first class is nonverbal communication. That was a class I had, I believe, my sophomore year of college. Learning about nonverbal cues within people really helped me a lot with determining body language and knowing when to say things or when to do certain things. So it was a class that I really took heed in and that I use every day. I'm always like, first, as soon as I step in the room, nonverbal cues is the first thing that I look at in people, and I do it myself. Like when I walk in the room, I have my head held high, I smile, and things like that nature. So, and another class that was really big was networking and event. I took my senior year with Dr. Sawyer. And that class really took me to a whole nother level within life. I'm still benefiting from that class to this day. With like, we had to reach out to a bunch of people that own companies, Fortune 500 companies and stuff like that, to try to get them to come to Westchester to talk to other students. So that class right there was like one of the most beneficial classes I ever been a part of in my life.
you just had to like cold call people and then invite them to campus. They don't even know who you are or why you're
You don't know who
calling,
you
or
are on
yeah.
LinkedIn, just on LinkedIn, hitting people up. Like I'm trying to talk to some professional athletes, and I'm just like, hey, I need you guys to come. So, like, it was a hard time, but it was actually like I got to connect with a ton of people, even guys that didn't come, but like I got to connect with a ton of people during that process.
Yeah, those are great skills. I mean, a lot of places you'll be in new spots where you don't know, and how do you interact and engage with folks when you may not totally know what who they are or why they're there. So um it's always good, I think, to discuss the like some of the struggles that you've had along the way to your successes. I know there's been a few of those. Can you tell us like maybe some of the challenges, the new spaces, the places, the people that you've encountered? I know your career has taken you to different cities, and but can you describe a few times when you used your degree and your education and your profession specifically in these like challenging moments?
Man, challenges and struggles. I got 1,000 of them, so that's probably the hardest question. Um, I could pick some from something recently from the season, basically. So, being a football player, your objective is obviously be healthy, make this money, and then pursue like that. But I had an unfortunate situation where I was hurt, which is normal when it comes to the sport. I didn't know if my career kind of was going to be done or not. So I have a good relationship with Brian Westbrook, who is our former Eagle, who is our player engagement for the XFL. And throughout the process of that, I was kind of speaking to him and saying to him, like, yo, like, honestly, I don't know what's next for me. Like, I don't know if I'm going to come back the same as a player. Uh, I don't know if if the team's going to look at me, see I got hurt at this age and be like, well, you know what? He's kind of like scraps now. So I was talking with Brian Westbrook, and the thing was, we got like a lot of resources within the XFL that can connect you to a lot of jobs and opportunities. So he connected me to this program called the Wilson HCG, who's partnership with the XFL, and it basically help you get ready for jobs. So throughout the process of that, we were trying to figure out what am I good at, and what would I want to do. And through that process, talking to the director of the company, he basically explained like the fact that I have a degree will make this so much easier. Even if I didn't have a degree, being a professional athlete, people hear my name and they see my name, they're interested, that would help. But he said the fact that I had a degree gives me like I think they have like an 85% turnaround. But the fact that I had a degree, it made it to like a 97% chance that whatever job that I wanted to get, I had the qualified skills, but I also had the piece of paper, which is my degree, my diploma, so my degree. So that definitely helped me out significantly throughout the process of when I was looking for like jobs.
And I think too, like that degree as well, like it's not just a piece of paper, but there's more like,
Yeah,
those nonverbal cues, the ways that you communicate, those sorts of things I think are approaching Brian and asking and understanding, I think, like those sorts of limitations. I think it's important. Like, I know that, like, I think it's reassuring for our students. I know I personally struggled as a student as well. And I think that, like, it's important for folks to see that, there's a process to it, and we sometimes have to kind of fall down. But I think as well, taking advantage of resources and acknowledging that is an important element. They do things differently now here at the university. They have like the first year experience now
yeah,
program, which I don't think you had. So a lot of the freshmen coming in are shown and demonstrated those resources and how they work here on campus right off the bat. So folks have a ways, because it's, as you can imagine, as a
yeah.
it's a big,
My first semester, I had a 1-2, so I was struggling a lot. Like,
yeah. So what were the sorts of things? How did you, like, what sorts of changes did you have to make in order to bring that
well,
around? Because I mean, yeah,
yeah, coming from the inner city, like the education system was like crap. So I kind of didn't know nothing. The class I had, like, I remember vividly because I would never forget. I had sociology 200, I had bio 100, which was killing me. And I think I had your class too, which was like at 8 a.m. So I'm like, being in high school, you used to waking up at 6 o'clock, but college, waking up at 8 a.m. was extremely hard. And I think that like that adapting, like just the time management was extremely difficult for me. But my second semester coming in, I got like a 3.8. And the thing is, one of my coaches used to always say, like, how do you spell love? Like, love, you spell love, Time, time. You spend time with the things that you love. So I love football so much. And I was like, this is my dream, that I have to spend so much more time with my schoolwork, because without the schoolwork, I would not be able to play football, and I'll be back home trying to figure life out, which I was doing in college, but it would be much more harder if I didn't have college within my life. So yeah, the resources, I didn't know about the resources that I did have, which was Tammy James afterwards, stuff like that. But just being a regular student, I didn't know research that I did have, which was a
yeah.
tons of resources for you not to fail.
Yeah, we're trying to make those resources a lot more apparent to folks early on now too, so that they know. So, but that's good that you take advantage of them, and yeah, it's hard to get that 4.0 right off the bat, but to make
Yeah.
things easier too. So I had a similar sort of story. I think that kind of segue into the next question, which is about, like, what sort of suggestions or recommendations would you make to folks about how to make the most of their college careers? Do you have, like, I mean, I know you had a great community, you had a great team that you work with, but outside of the athletics, can you, like, sort of activities, organizations, maybe some clubs or things that you participated in that were highlights for you? I know Tammy James' work that you'd done with
Yeah.
her.
I would say the main thing is like it goes back to like preschool, like middle school, being a good person to people. Like they say, you never know who someone may be when you're done school or something like that. So the biggest thing for me was just being a good person to like anybody I encounter. Like no matter what their background was, their race or anything, I was just a good person to them. Like, so that being a good person helped me out a lot. And I wish I took more advantage of networking while I was in college. Just you said, being an athlete, people kind of knew who I was, so people kind of wanted to gravitate towards me and talk and have conversations with me. So I was obviously an outgoing person with like people on campus or whatever. And I know people think of jocks and be like, oh, well, he's gonna be arrogant and stuff like that. I was a guy that kind of talked to any and everybody. I walked down the street, there was a person that like, how do you know him? I'm like, oh, I had class or I encountered him at Starbucks, something like that. So that was the main things. I wish I networked much more. Even though I have regrets, I wish I networked much more, even within the resource that we did have. And being a college student, that would have helped me much more in a situation of just having certain mentors throughout college. It would have made it much easier, my process. So
Yeah, the Career Center does a lot more sort of interventions and reaching out to students and stuff, and those, like, really good maybe time it's hard to find time for those early on, but
Yeah.
they're really doing a good job. And I think internships as well. We're really trying to find more. Did you have an intern? I guess you probably didn't have time for internships or things when you were here. Yeah. So
Uh, Sort of, kinda. I had a job, so I had a job working at Glen Mill School.
okay.
So I always wanted to get back to the youth. So that was kind of, I guess, an internship in sort of a way. But
Yeah.
no, I didn't really never have an internship. I just connected with guys and just like kind of told them like I play football and I'm trying to do this. I just got to put all my eggs in this basket right now. But in the future, I would love to connect with you guys and just shadow and stuff like that. So
Were you engaged with other clubs or groups on campus here too?
yeah, I was associated with the Negroes Women Association when I was on campus. So I was like I couldn't be it because you have to be a woman to be a part of it,
Mhm.
of any race, but I was an affiliate member of it, just advocating for women in the corporate world and Black women specifically too as well. So I was a part of that while I was there, and then I had friends that was a part of clubs. So I would, like I said, just being a good person, I would show my face. But other than that, no, I was just kind of really just a part of football for the most part,
Yeah.
like mainly.
Right. Okay. Cool. And are you still involved in any of these groups or like mentors? Or I mean, I know you were. I know you would come back here as a graduate student for a little bit as well. Or is there ways that you're still connected with the community, certainly through the football program as well?
Yeah, so Tammy James was running a company with a mentorship with basically like you basically mentor a student when you're a grad assistant as a job. So I didn't get a chance to do that, but I had a couple mentors. I was mentoring a couple people from the team while I was there, just basically telling them how to navigate and also directing them to places to go. So they kind of asked being that we've been through it. I've been through it, college stuff like that. So they would ask me like, how would I like face this difficulty or these challenges and stuff like that. And then also with the Negroes Women's Association, I would come back and help them out, things of nature. If they have something to do with donations or something like that, I would try to donate here and there and mention it to my teammates. So that's the only thing I possibly be in touch
Yeah.
with as far as
And
that.
this opportunity as well, being part of this interview too, I think is important. We want to acknowledge that as well, your time. And so thank you, Nadir, for
Yeah,
for
100%.
for doing
Yeah,
this.
yeah, definitely.
Um, can you talk a little bit about like how you might use your degree or how you're like in your professional career? I know we talked about some of the classes and some of the nonverbal body language, but like when we were planning for this, you talked about like being interviewed a lot and that like. So could you comment a little bit on how like maybe some of the degree things that you learned trickle down into interviews that you may have, meeting people, contracts that you may be signing,
Yeah,
yeah, those
definitely.
sorts of things.
The first thing that helped a lot was like, which everyone is scared of, like, which I was also too, was public speaking when I first got to college. Public speaking, I was terrified of public speaking. And I was spoken in front of like thousands of people at one time on stages and stuff like that. The biggest thing, and it's crazy because I failed one of my public speaking classes because of just like the fear. But public speaking is something that I go back to that I feel like it's such a good attribute to have under your belt, like being a comm major. Just being able to know how to communicate. People pay you to communicate because they may be scared to communicate. It's like a fear of people. So like I feel like communications, that degree really helped me out to the highest degree of just like I said, knowing the nonverbal cues and seeing if people interested or not, just looking around the crowd, scanning the crowd. And if I see like majority of the crowd is like not into whatever I'm saying, I kind of try to make a joke or be relatable. And I say, hey, yo, I know you guys may be boring. I see this guy his head down and stuff like that. Try to be like a comedian to a certain extent. So like that did like my comm degree helps me out in everything I do in life. Just I want to get into real estate. Being able to understand like how to communicate and be personable is something that helps me a lot. Like small group communication, playing a sport of football, like being in a small group with the defensive backs and then knowing when to be in a big group and stuff like that. So all the things that I learned in college and like knowing the science behind it and actually having education behind it really helped me out a lot of just obviously knowing the basic of just like, oh yeah, we're communicating, we're talking here and there. What's the actual dialogue? When am I using logical force of like when to use logical force when I'm in a debate with someone to like try to steer them in a different direction. So that definitely helps me a lot.
Can you tell the difference in terms of some of the guys that you might encounter that may not have had a 4-year degree in terms of the ways that they like carry themselves or talk about things? Or you mentioned the science here, like,
Yeah,
is
yeah,
that
100%.
palpable?
Yeah,
No, really?
100%. Yeah, it really is. It's like when you're in college, it's like when you graduate, it's like being a part of fraternity. Like we all now are fraternity brothers and sorority. Like we all are one because we know the struggle, we know the process of how it is to get through college, and we speak a different type of language when you get through college. You know what I mean? So like I know guys that kind of didn't finish their degree or just had a little sprinkle because they always talk about his parties and stuff like that. I'm like, oh yeah, like did you finish? And they'd be like, no, I did one semester, or I did 1 year, and I was like, oh, I could tell like because the first year is your best year. That's the funniest year that you have. So that's all we
Right.
speak about. So I can definitely tell from having a conversation with certain people that actually got their degree and people that don't have a degree.
Yeah. It's like a credibility almost in terms of, uh, yeah, and that has you, yeah, and those things too. I think the public speaking is super important. I mean, you took the writing class with me, like some of those
Yeah,
rhetorical things about who the audience is and using humor, like those are all relevant things. I think I teach a 9 a.m. class, which is similar, where students have difficulty attending that. And
yeah,
for them to sort of hear like that these are skills that are really transcend, that you really use your whole life, I think is important for them. Like we tell them, but like to really
yeah.
kind of apply that is good. I know our university, with the emphasis on public speaking as well, is we're sort of shifting that too in terms of a general education attribute, like not just the class that you're taking as you're checking off, but really
Mhm.
engaging in it because it does have such great applications in the future in very very different modalities. So
Especially your class too, as well. Because I didn't know about a thesis statement until I attended your class. Like I didn't knew what a
yeah,
thesis statement was, and I use thesis statements all the time when I'm even talking. So I didn't know nothing about thesis statement until like
yeah,
I had writing
yeah,
class.
having a purpose. Yeah,
Yeah,
cool. That's great. Um, what's next for you in your career? I mean, I know you mentioned like real estate license. We always have a place here when you're ready to come back for your master's degree. I always,
yeah,
when we're always encourage you to become Dr. Rouse too when you're ready for that. And
yeah.
you're maybe not training as hard in your body, your mind, those sorts of things. But what's next? Can you describe a little bit of like your trajectory, maybe in the immediate future and down the line, maybe the next 5, 10, 15 years too?
Yeah. So I'm definitely going to continue pursuing my professional career until like my body is like kind of saying like no. Like
Yeah,
so I would say I got about 6 years left, depending on how I feel right now. So that's like the main focus, putting it there, and then also using that as like a pivot to step into like the real estate game and rub elbows with like some of the higher ups people and stuff like that. So my trajectory right now is kind of like I'm kind of aiming towards the youth. Like this summer, I kind of gave back a lot to the youth for like events and stuff of that nature. So right now, I'm kind of like I'm working with a few guys, like a retired NFL player, Mike Greenbatch. He played for the NFL for about 10 years, older guy, and we're trying to basically set up foundations through Christ to use sports as a way to get people into Christ, but also to whatchamacallit, have entrepreneurships or certain tasks because everyone won't go to college, which is like the nature of it. And sometimes it's definitely extremely expensive. So we're trying to use tools to get kids to give like trades or get into real estate, or kids that want to go to college and stuff like that, provide them resources, take them to college campuses so they can see the different world that it is compared to where they're at and stuff like that. So I think that's right now my main focus within that outside of football. It just kind of like just like everyone else in college now, like I thought I had it figured out, but money doesn't get you figuring things out, especially with the economy with things going now. You kind of got to do a lot more things to get this certain type of income. So
yeah.
that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, we were talking this morning with my students about this idea of liberation, and one of them was like, "Money, money is the way for liberation," and I'm like, so
It's not at all. Like no matter how much money you got, man, like it's just like you can have $1 million a day, and it just can be like, what is it tomorrow? Like
yeah,
the value is increasing on a lot of things. So if you got $500 10 years ago, or even 5 years ago, it's not worth the same now. Like that's getting you a bag of groceries that's sitting in your front seat compared to when maybe 5 years ago you get $500 worth of groceries, you can fill your whole bag trunk up. So things are definitely changing.
yeah. So that's a nonprofit that you're working with now. That's just like you volunteer to work with that group just because you know it's important for the community.
Yeah, so it's a nonprofit and I'm working with directly. I don't have a nonprofit myself, but
Right.
they are a nonprofit themselves, and they have been for years. But they kind of they're a smaller branch compared to like a higher branch, which is called the Fellow Christian Athletes. They're a smaller branch, so they're trying to take off, and they have like the resources, but they just don't have the team. So they figuring they need to
Mm,
get more youthful guys to be
yeah.
a part of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The idea of entrepreneurialism is interesting too. I mean, we think about that here as well about um, rather than preparing students for jobs that already exist, preparing our students to create their own jobs, right? Like
Yeah.
similarly, I guess to where you are here a little bit, thinking about like you're not pigeonholed as a CPA or you're run as a CEO. You have a lot of different projects going on.
Yeah.
We'd like more money coming in as a result of those projects, but certainly I have to imagine the quality of life with some of that is it's important mentoring. I think you've always been engaged in that mentoring process as well, formally
Yeah.
and informally. So hopefully we were able to facilitate that here at Westchester and still kind of create space for
Yeah.
that if that's what you're
Definitely.
interested
Definitely.
in doing. So and then I guess you continue to train regularly. That's like is that a morning like you is that a half day kind of
Yeah, I'm kind of like addicted to it. So like I had the same schedule that I had when I was like in high school. The 4 a.m. schedule got me to the NFL. So I kind of like I'm not going away from it. It's kind of draining though. Like it's a process, just like with anything you do. I guess like even like with this conversation, some people may see this video or here or in here right now, and then they get like extremely motivated, and then they're like, I'm doing this for this next 2 weeks, and then motivation just dies down. So more
yeah,
so being disciplined is what I like learned to do. Like and just being like, even when I'm not motivated, I'm still going to show up. And because discipline, it just goes like this. Motivation goes here, here, here. So it's just like it's draining, but
yeah.
definitely the best. But
Yeah, that's sort of yeah, that's much of like, you know, our identity and who we like. You'll find that things change at 30 though, unfortunately, my friend. I always found 30 is I don't know what the word on the street is. I'm not a scientist, but I can tell you from my own experience.
30 is different.
40 is even worse. Anyway, we'll save we don't want to scare the people in this space. But do you have what sorts of advice do you have as we're sort of wrapping up our questions here? Do you have advice for our what sorts of advice would you have for like our current students here at Westchester specifically? Could you share some advice or wisdom?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I would tell a lot of people like I said, go back to middle school days, the basics. Wherever you're at, make sure that you're being like a good person. Like people gravitate towards good energy. Like less so the skills, people gravitate towards good energy. So constantly being a good person, constantly networking when you're in the process of doing that. Like, just having conversations. And if you have something like you kind of know what you're going to do, like I said, that love, like how do you spell love? Spend tons of time with it. Like make sure that you're spending a million times with it. Like people always told me the NFL, getting to NFL was impossible. Even before I came to a D2 school. Then I seen like the statistics of like people making it to NFL from D2. It was just like kind of impossible. But I feel like nothing in the world is impossible. The closest thing that can get you to creating the possibility of something that's impossible is obviously hard work. Work as hard as you possibly can, whatever goal that you have, and you'll get that's step one that you take care of, and everything else will take care of itself. And also just being involved with any chance you get. You get some free time, be involved, enjoy yourself, have fun, and just know that like when you hear certain stories from other people, just know that everyone's stories are the same. It's billions of people in the world, and no one has the same fingerprint. So that tells you a lot. Like no one has the same story. So just understanding
Yeah,
the process of that. So
cool.
definitely.
Yeah, post pandemic too. I think we're trying to get students like a lot more engaged and involved on campus, like communities and places. So it's so important. You know, you had football, there's clubs and groups and organizations, and being part of that, I think, is that community piece. I think is really strong. I think you found that here at Westchester as well. Like I know you're still friends with probably a lot of those your teammates and those guys out there. Say hello to them for me, by the way, too. When you if they're not here already, hey guys.
Yeah.
But I think that's the strength, as well too. Can you tell us a little bit about like does Westchester have a reputation in these spaces? Like, do people
Yes.
know or have they heard
Yes.
of or
Yes.
they
People
have?
knows about like even like someone like Aaron Rodgers, like was a guy like he knew about Westchester and stuff like that, which I don't even know how because he's over in the West Coast. But some people, so the thing is, a lot of people when I first say Westchester, you'll have even like people like, oh, Westchester. I know about Westchester University, like the Golden Rams, the town, they know about the town and everything like that. And there's a lot of people in the business field that's like in Westchester that's out in the world and stuff like that. Like Westchester travels, like with the XFL, the guy that ran like each week we did like an episode like the Hard Knocks. If anyone's familiar with the Hard Knocks, basically they follow our team around and stuff like that, create videos. The guy that was the head guy of it went to Westchester, and his buddy owns Ricktown, and he came up to me and was like, hey, yo, listen, you guys, the DC Defenders will be my favorite team. I'm gonna root hard for you. I'm not gonna tell anyone because I'm a Westchester alum, so I'm
Mhm.
rooting hard for you up top, man. So I'm trying to get as much footage as you as I can. And I was just like, man, I appreciate that, but I constantly run into Westchester guys, even within the professional sports, coaching, teachers. I do like community service. I run into a ton of teachers from Westchester, like outside and like that's in different states and that nature, and also nurses. I know a ton of nurses that work at Penn right now that went to Westchester. So it's like it's a big family. And obviously when you say you're a Golden Ram, like it just carries a different type of weight. Like people like, oh, you're a Golden Ram, like they literally want to look out for you the minute they hear that. So it's a good
Cool.
support system within Westchester, and
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think the alumni series that we're doing that you're part of here too, I think highlights some of the great things that some of our alumni do in all sorts of fields, whether that's sports and the arts and the humanities is really tremendous.